Welcome to the IT Collab, the podcast where the realms of community and collaboration intersect to revolutionize the delivery of IT managed services. I'm your host, Brandon Barnes. Whether you are an experienced IT professional seeking to expand your skill set or a visionary business leader in search of innovative solutions, we have you covered. Our experienced guests, comprising of industry veterans and thought leaders, will offer invaluable perspectives and insights to guide you through the dynamic landscape of IT. So, let us embark on this thrilling journey together. Let's go.
Reminds me, it does that countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It reminds me of Wayne's World, so I want to do the and go. All right, Nathan. So today is another new episode for us, and we are going to talk. Well, let's just put it this way: Nathan is going to inform me, and I'm just going to ask questions about Copilot Plus PCs. Now, I just co-piloted over here, so I do have some answers, but I'm not going to read it over here.
It's always fun to be the nerd who likes to research this stuff and then gets to tell people what I've learned. So this will be fun.
Yeah, let's do it. Tell me what's going on. What is this Copilot Plus PCs?
Well, Microsoft made a big announcement a couple weeks ago, big launch of, and actually I think they announced it at Build technically, but they had a big follow-up announcement in the last couple weeks, and they launched this week. They're starting to ship. And Copilot Plus PCs are a new class of machines that Microsoft is pushing. And so there's a couple big variables that are kind of happening with this. The main core behind a Copilot Plus PC is it is a PC with 40 trillion operations per second worth of neural processing unit capacity on the chipset. So it's basically taking that GPU that people are using to run AI models and putting a healthy amount of it on your laptop itself so that they can run local large language models on your computer.
Versus over the web?
Versus over the web. And the idea there is that, hey, if it wants to process local data as it's happening, if it's happening in Microsoft's data center, they got to upload that data, process it, and bring it back. And so they're really trying to bring that AI processing to the edge, as the phrase is these days. And so there's only one chipset that can achieve Microsoft's Copilot Plus specifications right now. And the big deal on these first launch set of laptops is they are ARM-based. So they're not x86. For the last 40 years, all of our Intel machines have been running on Intel and AMD processors running the x86 processor instruction set, right? Back in the day, Apple used to be on a PowerPC, right? And then they switched them over to Intel a few years ago. And actually, Apple has been switching over to ARM chipsets as well for all their laptops. Everything you buy from Apple now is running an M-series processor, and that is running on ARM because the battery life on them is incredible. It's incredibly better at managing power, which Nathan, is why your cell phone is running ARM chipset.
What's an ARM? What's an ARM chipset?
ARM. It's just a different set of instructions templates. And ARM is kind of it's an ARM architecture family. It's in the family of RISC instruction set architecture. ARM Limited is a kind of a conglomerations of groups that are it's multiple people in the industry who've come together to build a structure,
a standardized chipset. Gotcha. Okay.
Standardized chipset set of instructions. It's definitely a competitor to the RISC set of processors of what a lot like your firewalls run. Those are running. Some of them are running RISC processors. A lot of industrial machines do. Most of your PCs for all the time we've been are running x86, which is Intel or AMD. Your phone has been on an ARM architecture for a long time. That's been the standard on phones and tablets for a long time. So this is a big move. Microsoft's tried to launch Windows on an ARM chipset for a number of years. Windows RT tablet, if you remember that, from about 10 years ago.
Well, I do.
Yeah. And it was a painful start. And one of the big things was back then you could only run apps in the App Store, and there wasn't much in the App Store. And you're like, well, my customers need to be able to run QuickBooks and Outlook, and you don't have either in the App Store. These are never going to sell. Microsoft has finally gotten the chipsets to the point where they're running this new version of Windows 11. It's 24H2, which isn't out for anybody else. But if you got a Copilot Plus PC, you get 24H2. It'll run on this ARM architecture. And then it'll run an emulator for x86 software. So you can still install your x86 standard Windows QuickBooks, and it runs in an emulation.
So
mode.
let me ask you a question real quick. I noticed
Yes.
that, once again, I'm trying to help connect business users here, right? So
Sure.
I've noticed, especially like when you get Adobe, you can't just download and install Adobe anymore. It's there's an app you have to install through the Windows Store. So this is going to be a lot more like we're talking with, your tablet or your phone, right? So it's all app based, so you have more control in device management since.
And so when Microsoft builds out the App Store, they can really control if the app applies to the standards. And so if you're emulating x86, you're going to have a performance hit. Whereas if it's built natively for ARM, it's compiled to run on that ARM chipset, it's going to run a lot faster. The advantages of these Copilot PCs that are running ARM chipsets: 15-hour battery life, 10-hour, 12-hour, 15-hour battery life. And I have a really nice Surface laptop. It doesn't last that long. I'm lucky if I get 4 hours off the charger. So these, very much like the MacBooks have had for a long time, where they're running a full day on a charge. These new Copilot Plus PCs have that ability to run. Intel will be releasing a Copilot Plus PC in the next 6 to 12 months. They don't have a chipset that can reach the performance requirements Microsoft has set currently, but they will build it. So there will be some native x86 chipsets eventually that will come out. But for now, the only ones on the market are running a Qualcomm Snapdragon Elite X ARM chipset. So the interesting thing there is that what Microsoft's trying to do is take that large language model that's on the back end of Copilot, that's on the back end of ChatGPT, and they're making smaller ones and putting it on your laptop so it can kind of process everything you're doing. Maybe one of them will absorb all the documents on your desktop and index them and understand them very well. Another one will pay attention to, all the conversations happening across Slack and Teams and, your different messaging apps, and will give you the ability to start to query the activity you're doing in that context. One of the big features that was announced at Build was a functionality called Recall. And the idea there was that Microsoft would be taking screenshots and keylogging off your computer for 90 days and storing it and running it against a large language model. And you could say, hey, a week ago I was searching for a toaster on my computer. Can you remind me where that was? And so you go, oh, that was Tuesday at 4:32 p.m. And you were on Amazon searching for an Oster toaster. And here's the model number and all this stuff. And so this kind of really incredible ability to respond to things. And so they announced this with lots of fanfare. And a day later, all the security vendors were like, hold on. So you're keylogging everything and taking screenshots of everything.
What if someone actually?
Are you
seriously? What did they say?
And Microsoft was like, well, no, we aren't encrypting it. So and then everybody was like, well, how do you handle NDAs and sensitive data and conversations that
stuff that's on your machine?
All these things that are happening on your machine that are supposed to be kind of not kept, because they're in some environment, they're in SharePoint or Box or something, but now it's getting stored on your machine in this large language model.
Crazy.
And so Recall got recalled and they're regrouping on what they want to do. But I think this is the world we're going to run into with AI, where they're trying to plug it into every area and then realizing maybe that's not always a good idea.
That's how the pendulum swings, man.
So
that's how the pendulum swings.
It is.
So what do you see what is the benefit of this?
I think eventually they, kind of like, how Copilot really blows you away once you start using it, how it handles meetings and searching your email. I think we'll get to the point where we start to realize we really like some very interesting contextual search where maybe you're searching for something in your web browser and it's able to remind you that you have a document about that and that you also sent a text message about that in Slack 2 weeks ago. I think there's some abilities for it to kind of absorb all the things you're doing and apply it for you. I think you're going to see a lot of it applied also in the graphic arts side. hey, you pull up a photo, let me help you do some AI on that photo. That kind of stuff will happen locally and very quickly as opposed to in the cloud. If you've done any of the AI stuff in the cloud, there's always a pause while it sends it to the data
Then
center.
it's sitting there
processes it,
spinning and
and sends it
spinning
back.
until you actually get something back. So that makes sense. I mean, I also think about the power. I mean, if they can take some of that cost and burden off of their server farm of GPUs on the
Correct.
back end, then they can put it on your machine and save some money there. So I get the benefit there.
I think that's
So is it going to be on
And
the new services? All the new Surface items that they start releasing?
right now it's only on the Surface Copilot Plus PCs. You got to go look and see if it qualifies as that. I do think that within a year or so, even all the Intel chipsets have the same, MPU capability, and all of a sudden it's on every Surface. I would guess that would be a big goal for Microsoft to make this available on their entire, product line. I think it'll become a variable when you're looking at a new laptop. Do I want 16 gigs of RAM or 24, and do I want enough MPUs to be a Copilot Plus PC? Will be just one more line in the comparison chart of different laptops from multiple
Don't you think
vendors.
Don't you think there'd be a little overheating on these things, so that maybe have bigger GPU or processing power?
You would think so, but like these new ARM-based, MacBook Airs that are kicking butt. They're
That's true. I mean,
fanless. So somehow they're
we have our
heat.
phones, right? They're pretty powerful.
They are. Yeah. Well, phones. Let's talk about phones. So, while Microsoft is announcing this, Apple also announced their AI initiative in the last couple of weeks, and they've kind of been quiet on the AI front. They were a little slower to the game, but it doesn't stand for artificial intelligence. Don't you worry. It's Apple intelligence.
Thank God. Yeah, I was worried.
You were worried for a second, right? It wouldn't be like
let's just keep the stupid plug you use for all your phones separate from everyone else. Let's change what we do to something else. Sorry.
Yes.
Nope.
No, it's very on brand for them, right? They're not going to say the same words other people say. But what's interesting is that a lot of their artificial intelligence functionality is limited to their newer chipsets. So, for example, I have an iPhone. I have an iPhone 14 Pro. It's about a year and a half old. I'm not going to get a lot of their AI functionality because my chipset does not have enough of that GPU power in it. You need an iPhone 15 Pro or newer, or an ARM-based M processor in your MacBook. If you have an older Intel Mac, a 3-year-old Intel Mac, you're not getting their AI. And they're taking an interesting approach as well, where they're doing a little bit less of building their own large language model and putting all of your data in their data center. They're very much taking the idea of, we're going to build it into the OS, but you can leverage OpenAI's model and you can leverage your local processing, and we're going to build models that work with you, but it's a little bit less of a data grab for Apple, as opposed to Microsoft or Google, who are looking for data everywhere they can get it to get into their language model. Apple's seemingly taking a little bit more of a semi-privacy focused perspective. I think any of this AI, there's just going to be decades of privacy challenges around this. I think we're all going to wrestle with this for a long time. But it's interesting just to see the different approaches different companies are taking.
I mean, you think on the cell phone front, we all know that even if you take a cell phone and put it in, like an off state, or if you even put it in a sleep mode, or turn off my location, it just reports back everywhere you went as soon as you turn it back on. So they listen to everything. They do listen to what you say. They do all the things that they know all the things about you. So I can't imagine they're too stressed out about that. They get to know more.
And everybody's fighting this battle because, like, I was looking it up the other day. Slack is promising is in trouble because they're harvesting their users' data for their AI model. Meta's in trouble for harvesting their data model. OpenAI is using Reddit data to build their AI model. The big one is Adobe's terms of service were updated, and anything you create with an Adobe product can be included in their AI model. So imagine all the creative people in the world building stuff with their Adobe software, and Adobe's like, you don't mind if we borrow that for our AI model, do you?
Someone had already created this. We're going to use it now. Thanks.
And so their constituents are understandably very upset. But this is the land grab, right? If you are Adobe, we've got these AI graphics generators that are just going to instantly change their industry.
Well, and if you're already using their tools, what are you going to say no? I mean, majority of the people, 90%, are going to say, okay, click yes. Now, question. on your phone, do you have an AI model thus far?
I do have two I can access. So I have two I use. I have Copilot through Microsoft's Copilot app. And then I also am playing with the Claude AI model, which is through a company called Anthropic that's backed by AWS. I just like having multiple models. But for example, I also don't have any Meta products on my phone. I won't put Instagram or Facebook because their willingness to listen to my conversations and they advertise to me immediately after creep me out enough.
You don't have any Meta on your phone at all? No.
Wow. I mean, just so consistently it was tied to you talk with somebody about their cat, and all of a sudden you're getting cat food ads the next day, and it's pretty clearly Meta. Now I think they're just less classy about it. I'm with you. Everybody else is doing it. Google's listening and Microsoft listening. They're all listening. It's a matter of Facebook's just more in your face about it. So
I mean, I can't say that I'm a frequent user of Facebook, so I'm not too stressed about it, but I know that my family is, so that's just saying.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I also noticed too on my. I mean, I'm a Google user, so I haven't bought Apple. And I had a disagreement many a moon ago, but that's okay. And
Sure,
I would say that what really kind of pushed me that realm was, Apple has their own thing. Anyway, on the Pixel, I mean, obviously Google does their own thing, but I have the Pixel and it's in my chat, so it's like literally in my Messenger, where it says, "Hey, ask me any question you want." So I just chat back and forth, almost like a messenger, and that's their AI model. Is I'm just chatting with someone and asking them questions. So I didn't know if Siri kind of leveled up and all of a sudden she has more information than ever, but
I think it's coming. I just won't be able to totally experience it until I get a new phone because that's the other advantage here is Apple sells more phones. So that's certainly a variable here. I mean, I think even on the PC side, right? We got lots of customers that are running 5, 6, 7-year-old PCs because as long as it has an SSD, the reality is the power of the processors haven't changed in the last 5 years dramatically in a way that matters. Like there's not some killer feature in your new laptop that your 5-year-old laptop doesn't have. It's been hard to sell.
This
upgrades.
is the game changer. I mean, I think there's always something that's going to press it to the next level. But to me, every time there's like I can't say that I need more RAM than 180 gigs of RAM on my machine right now. I can run everything just fine, or I have a solid state drive. I mean, everything's kind of been pretty flat for a while, so I can see where this is going. Oh, we better upgrade this so we can add more AI to your machines. And that's just gonna. I mean, that drives a whole nother force because now you're selling more, newer, more complex machines. So I could see that being another one as well.
The Windows 10 upgrade cycle is going to drive some sales too. The Windows 10 end of life in 2025.
Oh, is that what 2025? Huh?
2025 standard Windows 10.
So what does that? What does that mean, Nathan? This for our users out here that don't understand what end of life means for Windows 10. I want to answer. Can I just be one? I want an answer. So TPM.
Yes. Planned
TPM.
obsolescence. Planned obsolescence. It does come down to TPM. So Microsoft is going to say that you can't. They're going to stop sending security patches for Windows 10 in October of 2025, unless you pay an extra fee to continue to get updates. And that fee is $60 the first year. It's $120 the second year. It's $180 the third year. And setting that up is going to take a little bit of work because you're going to have to build out that license and have it enrolled in in Tune so that license can be pushed to it. It's not easy to do. And so they want people to upgrade to Windows 11, which is great. I've been using Windows 11 for 2 years. To me, it's not much different than Windows 10. It's just kind of a skin on Windows 10. It's fine. I have no emotions around it.
I almost feel like Windows 11, they saw this coming. Like they built it almost as if you could use it like a mobile device. The apps, integrated apps, or like I said, that's when I started to notice when you had to install Adobe as an application. So for anyone out there, business users that don't 100% understand what this means, I'll be very simplistic. Ensure that your machine that you purchase in the future has a TPM 2.0 chip. And for security purposes, so it can authenticate, you cannot install Windows 11 without the TPM 2.0. So make sure you purchase the
Yes.
right one and not some cheap stuff off the website or
Yes.
Amazon.
Yes. And the bigger issue is going to be all these fleets. We have millions of computers across business sites, and they're like, why? We're running 5-6-year-old machines because why not? They work fine. They're productive. They're not a big deal. Well, most of those, there's a big chunk of them that cannot install Windows 11, and that TPM is a core piece of that. They don't have the right TPM, and I think it's just a way to drive PC sales. I think the PC manufacturers and Microsoft have a real tight relationship, and they both want to drive some sales, and so that's a lot of it. I do think that the TPMs are important if you understand how some of the authentication methods, like Windows Hello for Business,
Yeah, it
work.
has.
Windows Hello for Business
Has to have the
needs
2.0,
a
right?
TPM,
Yeah.
and that TPM effectively turns your laptop into a FIDO 2.0 key, the same as a UB key. Your laptop itself becomes a very strongly phishing resistant authentication method, and so that's a big benefit for people who have implemented that are running a full Azure AD and Tune enrolled Windows Defender for Business. Your authentications in browsers that support it is much more secure than it is in a non-TPM machine. So there's upside, but it's definitely going to be a challenge as all these businesses all of a sudden realize, oh man, I got to replace half my fleet before October of 25, or figure out a extended support equation, and it's going to be a challenge for a lot of
I'm looking at my
people.
watch right here, and it says that that's a year from now almost. So maybe we should start thinking about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think as IT people, we've realized over time. I've seen this over and over. You must get off
over and over.
XP in order to get to Windows 7, right? You must get off. Well, Windows 10
Yeah,
was probably a much smoother transition because it was just in place, upgrade, go. And for the most part, it worked pretty well, except for those machines that didn't have the TPM 2.0, right? Because then our TPM 2, they didn't have those, and so it's like, oh, your machine is not upgradable. So I mean, there's a
right.
good amount of people out there. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I've seen this over and over again, and this is just
Yeah,
the new
for sure.
reason, right?
Yep. And we've had this on the server side,
Yeah.
right? If you're on Server 03, Server 08, now Server 2012 is no longer fully supported. So, that Microsoft's trying to get you on a Server 2016. And there's a piece of it that is them trying to sell new hardware and help the manufacturers. But it is also their effort to support a smaller code base, right? You have to support these old legacy OSs. It's all, and if they're in production systems, that's a lot more support resources where they can't, retire old code, and they have to have resources maintaining these old OSs. So they do want people on the newer operating systems. So it's just interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years with all of this. And I'm curious if your prediction comes true that having AI locally on the machine becomes something that, I mean, you and I get it. We're going to want to play with it, right? I already want to go get a Copilot Plus PC to see what it can do. What magic does it do that I've never seen before? But the business users start to really embrace this idea of local AI. Does it become something that's a difference maker to non-technical
I'll be
people?
honest. I've seen a shift in the company. We made a decision. We tested Copilot for the company, and I think that what really came down to as a business, when you start putting open AI or you're paying for open AI or whatever it is out there, that's not. We talked in a previous episode that it's not secure, right? So you're putting your stuff
Right?
out
You
there
don't control
on
that data.
their, if you're building business stuff and you're trying to write business items and put it on their platform, it's not secure. So using
Right?
Copilot, at least you have the internal version. You're keeping internal, and you have that. And so we really made a business conscious choice to buy or purchase Copilot for everyone in the company, and really test it out. We tried it out with, as our project managers started to see that it completely saves time because they're not having to go back through the meeting. All the notes are already taken for them. Here's how it doesn't even tell you how long each person spoke. What was the temperature of the meeting? Like I like the one you said. You had a couple other ideas back there, and really play with that, and it has helped. Like if I'm not the best writer, I can bullet point things to death, but it helps me write out something. And so I could say, even our newer users or older users that are opposed to it, they've really embraced it more and more. It helps speed up their day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. it's a game changer once you embrace it. But you kind of have to, like you said, drink the Kool-Aid, for lack of a better phrase. It's just it's a thing. And then once you do, you start to realize how cool it is, and
Yeah.
what an improvement it is. But then I also learned that I'm having to grow with my brain. I don't always go to it by
Yeah.
default. I can search this with Copilot instead of just the Outlook search. And those are hard habits to break.
I did that. I did a search the other day, and I was kind of impressed. I'm like, instead of searching, it's almost like you're changing from a web browser to this to this tool over here. And I'm like, oh man. But so as we integrate this, Nathan, into machines, I mean, where do you really see this going? Like, do you think this is going to take off?
I do. I think it's just going to be interesting, because like we've tried integrating AI across our business, and there's places it sings and places it doesn't. Like documentation. You'd think AI would be amazing with your documentation system, but the problem is it's garbage in, garbage out. Documentation is built at the lowest common denominator oftentimes by your technicians, right? They're like, I solved this problem. I don't want to forget how. I'm going to put just enough information in here so that I can trigger my own thoughts to get back to it next time, right? Like there's this bare minimum of documentation. You throw that into an AI model, it doesn't have enough to work with. But you throw it into a ticketing system, and the ticketing system just crushes it, because it's like great data. It's very consistent data. It's language, and it's able to process that. And it does things like triage tickets and classify tickets incredibly well, because it's just standard language processing. And so I think on the PCs and computers, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to find things it does really well. Oh, graphics arts, it helps you generate, PowerPoint presentations that are even cooler, because it's got a local local AI model that can generate a prettier PowerPoint presentation. So it gets leverage for those things. And then we'll find interesting places it really does good. Maybe Excel becomes powerful. You're like, oh man, throw a couple numbers in Excel and Excel can just fly. But is it going to change your day-to-day work? I don't know. I think it'll just start to pop in specific places.
I think by adding it to the PC, it's just another level. But as always, we have to be conscious of security, right?
Yes. I think it's going to be an arms race on that front, and I think the privacy battles are going to last a long time. There's going to be lawsuits for years of, hey, you stole all my data and used it to train your model. Well, you can't prove it. Yes, I can. No, you can't. And like when does being published on the internet mean it could be used to be trained somebody else's model? Like there's just, the lawyers are licking their chops to have years of litigation on that.
It's like the healthcare. If you're going to make enough money, kind of like some of these people that release whatever, if you're going to release something, you make enough money, you can afford the litigation. So I don't know.
Correct.
It's going to be what it is.
Yeah. And I think that's a good illustration. These models have exploded, and they're so far ahead of law, and law will take years to catch up.
Yeah.
And you don't get it back in the bottle. You go, okay, great. All right. Well, we'll purge anything I can find in this AI model that's from the Washington Post because they won their lawsuit against Microsoft or something, right? Like at what point, how do you put it back in the bottle? In the
bottle?
Because I mean, this AI stuff is
it's too smart.
Evolving by the day.
So true.
Right? It's moving so quickly. Yeah. And I just think it's very hard for everybody to keep up with it with a technology like this that's just exploding. So it'll be an interesting couple decades, I think. I think we're going to look back on these moments and go, man, that's when the world changed in a significant way.
Perfect, man. I want to thank you for joining me today, and let's talk about something nerdy. I love it. But in the description, we're going to post some stuff in there for anyone that's listening, kind of link to Copilot Plus PCs. I actually went on Copilot and typed it in. I have the whole description right here. So we'll put that out there for everyone. Nice. And I hope that our users continue to learn and join us on our fun journeys down IT technology.
And then in the next episode, we're going to flip the tables, and you're going to tell me a bunch of stuff about some work you've been doing lately that I know nothing about, and very excited for that. So
the world of automation, my friend, the world in marketing. All right, everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, join us, join our feeds, and keep supporting what we're doing. Thank you. Have a good one.